Dr. Nightechoes.
I worked at the morgue during my summer break from college. It was a quiet job that paid well. One night, I was working the late shift, all by myself. The building was very still and very cold. I had just finished cleaning a metal table in the prep room. Suddenly, a loud bang came from the cold storage area. It sounded like a heavy metal tray hitting a wall. I walked into the freezer to see what fell. Everything looked normal. All the body drawers were closed and locked. I turned around to leave the room. Right then, I felt a heavy pressure on my shoulder. I heard a very loud, wet sound right against my ear. It sounded like someone was trying to breathe through a throat full of liquid. It was a deep, rattling noise that made my skin crawl. I could even feel a damp warmth on my neck. I spun around quickly, but the room was empty. There was nobody there. I ran back toward the prep room, but the heavy steel door was shut. I had left it wide open with a doorstop. I pulled the handle as hard as I could, but it was locked from the inside. I was trapped in the cold with the bodies. I had to use the wall phone to call for help. When security came, they checked the cameras. They saw the heavy door slam shut with incredible force. There was no one near it. To this day, I still feel that wet breath on my neck. My best friend and I went to an old hospital at the edge of town. It was late at night, and the building was very dark. We carried flashlights and walked slowly through the halls. We went up to the third floor, where the doctors used to work. We found a metal table in the middle of a large room. It was bolted to the floor and covered in rust. Suddenly, my friend's light started to flicker. We heard a loud noise of metal scraping on the floor. The sound came from the corner of the room. We pointed our lights toward the noise. A man was sitting in a chair. He wore a dirty white coat. When he looked up, I felt very scared. He had no eyes and no mouth. His face was just smooth, flat skin. The man stood up. He moved toward us with strange, jerky steps. He looked like a doll that was falling apart. We did not wait. We turned and ran as fast as we could. We did not stop until we reached my car. I drove away, and my hands were shaking. When we got home, my friend stopped walking. He looked at the back of my jacket. There was a black handprint made of soot right between my shoulders. I never felt anyone touch me. My friend and I were driving through the woods in West Virginia late at night. The road was very narrow and dark. There were tall trees on both sides of us. Suddenly, my headlights hit something in the middle of the road. It looked like a person sitting on the ground, but the shape was wrong. The arms and legs were much too long. As we got closer, the thing stood up. It was very tall, maybe 7 feet or more. Its skin was a pale, sickly gray color. I looked at its head and felt sick. It had no eyes and no nose. There was only a wide, flat mouth with no lips. It did not run away. It just took one long step into the dark woods and disappeared. We did not speak for a long time. We were both too scared to say anything. We drove for 20 miles until we found a gas station with bright lights. I parked the car, and my hands were shaking. My friend finally looked at me. His face was very white. He asked if I saw how long the arms were. I just nodded my head. We never drove on that road again. I still think about that gray skin every time I drive at night. I was driving home on a dark back road after a late shift. The moon was very bright and full. I could see the cornfields on both sides of the road. I saw a tall figure standing in the middle of a field. It was just standing there, watching the road. As my car got closer, I saw that it was not a person. It was much too tall. Its arms were very long and reached all the way down to its knees. The thing was wearing an old, torn suit. It looked like a suit from a very long time ago. It did not have any eyes. There were just two glowing red holes in its head. I felt a deep chill in my chest. As my car drove past the field, the thing tilted its head to the side. It opened its mouth and smiled at me. I saw rows of very sharp teeth that looked like needles. I pushed the gas pedal to the floor as hard as I could. I did not look in the mirror until I pulled into my driveway and locked my car doors. My heart was beating very fast. I stayed in my car for a long time before running inside. To this day, I will not drive on that road after the sun goes down. I can still see those red eyes in the dark. Many years ago, I lived in a big, old house with 3 floors. We turned a room on the middle floor into an office. I used to work late at night to finish financial reports. My son was only 3 years old at the time. He spent the evening playing on one of the computers in the office while I worked. Around 9 at night, he fell asleep in his chair. I turned off his monitor and carried him to his bed. I turned off the light and left the room. For the next few hours, I sat in the living room and watched TV with my wife. She went to bed at 11, and I decided to go to sleep an hour later. I remembered that I left a window open in the office. I went back into the room to close it. The office was very dark. I did not turn on the light because I knew where the window was. As I walked toward the window, I saw a faint glow. It was coming from the computer my son had used earlier. The monitor was on, but the screen was mostly black. In the middle of the screen, there was one single word in bright white letters. The word was watching. My son was only a toddler. He did not know how to spell or type. I checked the computer's history that night. No websites had been visited. No programs had been opened. The word was just sitting there on the screen in the dark. My family bought a top-floor apartment when I was in high school. The price was very low. We found out the owner was a music man who went missing. His body was found months later. He had been hurt and shot many times. It was very sad. We bought the place from his mother. My stepdad and I went there every day to fix the walls. I always felt like someone was watching me. One day, my stepdad went to the car to get tools. I was all alone. I looked down the long hallway toward the big bedroom. I saw a bright white shape appear. It looked like a person. It walked from one side of the room to the other. It stopped in the middle and turned its head. It looked right at me. I could not move. It did not feel evil, but I was very scared. It looked at me for a few seconds. Then it walked away and vanished. I ran to the elevator as fast as I could. It was the middle of the day. The sun was out, so I know what I saw. My stepdad laughed at me. A few days later, we found an old notebook in a closet. It had poems and drawings from the dead man. My mom wanted to give it to his mother. My stepdad was mean and threw it in the trash. After that, scary things started. Lights turned on and off. Windows we closed were now wide open. I am Navajo. Back in the early 1990s, a white man moved to my small town to teach at the local school. He did not know our ways or the things that hide in the dark. A skinwalker began to haunt him every single night. It would scratch at his windows and howl in the yard. One night, the teacher reached his breaking point. He waited in the shadows of his porch. When the creature crept close, The man jumped out and grabbed it. He was very strong and full of rage. He wrapped his hands around its neck and choked the skinwalker until it stopped moving. The paramedics came quickly, but they would not get close to the body. They stood back with a look of pure fear on their faces. The dead man was not just a man. He was covered in layers of old, rotting animal skins that seemed to be stuck to his flesh. The smell was like dead meat left in the sun for weeks. It was a smell that stayed in your clothes and your hair. My people say you must be very careful with your things. You should never leave your hair, your nails, or your old clothes where others can find them. If a witch or a skinwalker gets a piece of you, they own you. They can use those items to make you very sick. They can bring bad luck to your home, or even cause you to die. You must watch your back at all times. My friend and I were driving through the deep woods of West Virginia. It was very late, and the road was narrow. Trees leaned over the pavement from both sides. Suddenly, my headlights hit something in the middle of our path. It looked like a person sitting low on the ground, but the shape of the body was not right. The arms and legs were way too long and thin. As the car got closer, the thing stood up on the road. It was very tall. It must have been at least 7 feet. Its skin was a pale, sickly gray color like a dead fish. I looked at its head and my heart stopped. It had no face at all. There were no eyes and no nose. There was only a wide mouth with no lips that stretched across its head. The thing did not run away from our car. It just took one very long step into the thick trees and vanished into the dark. We did not say a single word to each other for a long time. We were both too terrified to speak. We drove for 20 miles until we saw the bright lights of a gas station. I parked the car and my hands were shaking on the wheel. My friend finally looked at me. His face was very white. He asked me if I saw how long the arms were. I just nodded my head. We never drove on that road again. When I was 7 years old, I stayed at my grandmother's house. It was a very old place with high ceilings and a long, dark hallway. One night, I was lying in bed with the door open just a little bit. I saw a woman walk past my room. She was wearing a long, white nightgown and had very long, dark hair. I thought the woman was my mom. I jumped out of bed and followed her into the kitchen to say hello. When I got to the kitchen, the room was empty and cold. I looked over and saw that the back door was standing wide open. I was confused, so I walked to my parents' room. I opened their door and saw that they were both sound asleep. My mom was wearing blue pajamas, not a white gown. I felt a chill run down my back. I went back to my bed and stayed under the covers. The next morning, I told my grandmother what I had seen in the hallway. She got very quiet, and her face turned pale. She sat me down and told me a secret. She had a sister who died in that house many years before I was born. On the night she died, she was wearing her favorite white nightgown. My grandmother said her sister never really left the house. I never wanted to stay in that hallway alone again. I still remember the way that white gown moved in the dark. I used to work in a very large warehouse. It was late at night, and I was the only woman working on the second shift. A truck driver sat in the waiting area and waved for me to come over. I thought he was lost or needed to find the restroom. I walked up to him to be helpful. Suddenly, he reached out and grabbed my wrist. He pulled me toward his face with a lot of force. He looked me right in the eyes and spoke in a low voice. He said, "You came this far for free. What would you do for a quarter?" I tried to pull away, but he held me so tight that it hurt. I was trapped. I felt a cold fear run through my whole body. I finally broke free and ran to find my boss. I told him what happened and showed him my arm. The man had gripped me so hard that he left dark bruises on my skin. My boss was very angry. I hid behind a large crate and heard him yelling at the driver to get out and never come back. The other men at work were very protective of me after that. 6 months later, I saw a story on the news. A truck driver had been arrested for being a serial killer. He had hurt many people. I looked at the picture on the screen and felt sick to my stomach. I still wonder if that was the same man who held my wrist. When I was 10 years old, my mom and I lived in a small apartment. One night, I woke up around 3 in the morning. My bedroom door was open just a little bit. I looked toward the door and saw a man standing there. He was very tall and wore a blue flannel shirt with old jeans. I could see him clearly because of the light in the hallway. He did not move at all. He just stood in the doorway and stared at me. I was so scared that I could not move my legs. I felt cold all over my body. I slowly pulled my blanket over my head. I stayed under the covers until the sun came up and the room was bright. That morning, I ran to the kitchen and told my mom what I saw. Her face turned very white. She told me that she woke up at the same time. She saw a man standing at the foot of her bed. He did not say anything. He just watched her sleep until she closed her eyes and prayed for him to leave. We moved out of that apartment 1 week later. After we left, we found out the truth about the place. The man who lived there before us had died by suicide in the living room. When the police found him, he was wearing a flannel shirt and jeans. I still wonder why he was watching us that night. I have a condition called exploding head syndrome. It makes me hear giant noises in my head right as I fall asleep. Sometimes it sounds like a car crash or a bomb going off. It only happens when I am very tired. I have lived with this for a long time. I learned to just ignore the loud sounds and try to stay asleep. One day, the noises were very bad. I was getting very angry because I could not rest. Every time a loud bang woke me up, I would scream bad words at the top of my lungs. I was just yelling at the sounds in my head. That afternoon, I finally woke up for real. I walked to my kitchen and saw that my back door was wide open. Someone had kicked it in with a lot of force. I looked around my house, but nothing was missing. My TV and my money were still there. I lived in a dangerous part of town, so I had security cameras. I went to check the video to see what happened. On the video, I saw a man kick my door open. The second he stepped inside, I heard myself on the recording. I was in the other room screaming, "Not again!" at the top of my lungs. The burglar looked terrified. He thought I was talking to him. He turned around and bolted out the door as fast as he could. He never came back. My brain saved my life that day.